morning, David. It's Kathy. How are you?
Hey, Kathy. How are you doing? Good morning.
I am doing great, thank you. Thank you for doing this interview with us today.
Well, thank you for doing it with me. I'm happy.
Well, listen, I'll get right into it so that I can give you the rest of the day. Roots to Rise. I am so excited. I listened to the whole thing, and it is terrible. It's like all of my favorites, all wrapped up in one. Now, this release is July 19th?
Yep, July 19th. So we're coming into the last couple of days of pre-orders and pre-sales.
Awesome. How's that going so far?
It's been going really well. Yeah, we're kind of blown away by the support. When we decided to do the album was because we realized that our live show was very, very important. Like, I think it's probably the thing that's most unique about us is how we actually perform our songs on stage.
I have to agree. Absolutely.
And it was one of the things that we really had to, that we have to do a lot of work trying to figure out when we're in studio, because it's quite hard to capture that live sound in a studio. So this live album was very important to us, to have that representation of the show.
Well, I agree. You know, a live album is just amazing compared to, I mean, not that the pre-recorded, you know, in the studio isn't great too, but just the feeling that you get and the feedback you get from the audience is amazing. Now, how did you end up choosing your location?
We have played at the Arc for a number of years. I suppose that the Arc is kind of hallowed ground for music in all across America. And we just know that the audiences there are really appreciative of the music. They really understand what we do as a band. And so, yeah, we had this idea a couple of months ago that we really wanted to, well, I suppose it's almost a year ago now at this stage, that we really wanted to capture. We've done a live album before. Our first live album was done in our hometown in Galway, which we geniusly called Live in Galway.
It was catchy. Yes, it was catchy.
I know. We just, you know, we're trendsetters and all that.
Now, how do you come about putting together a set list? You know, do you just like figure like the ones that the audience always requests the most, or how did you put together that set list? And were you a little nervous about, you know, recording live? Because I read an interview once or heard an interview once where the folks that were doing the recording were like, okay, well, there's a couple days we're doing this. If we don't get it the first time, then, you know, maybe we'll have the second time. And the band itself was a little bit more nervous about the performance that they were doing. So you could tell it was a little more strained. And then the next day they just played to have fun. So did you, you know, first of all, the set list, how did you come about it? And then secondly, were you a little nervous doing it the first take?
Yeah, honestly, if you were in the band, you would know how stressful it can be at times. I literally wrote the set list 4.5 minutes before we stepped on stage. We had a general idea of the songs we wanted to record, and we kind of wanted to get again. Haven only came out not even a full year ago.
I remember at Gates. You guys released it the day of Gates.
That's right, yeah. So what we really wanted to do is we wanted to kind of capture some of our older music and reimagine it. We had some new music, and we also had stuff off Haven, but that has really changed a lot in the kind of 9 months of on the road playing it. And so the song choice actually was pretty difficult because we had to kind of go into the more uncomfortable material.
Right.
That we hadn't already previously recorded on a live album, and it really music that's really grown. So we play Prettiest Little Girl in the County.
I love it.
Completely different to what we used to.
Right.
And now on stage we throw in a Stevie Wonder cover at the end.
Right.
Because
I love that.
why not? I mean,
right.
Prettiest Little Girl in the County, played by Stevie Wonder, would have been the most amazing song in the world.
Agree. Yeah. Go ahead.
And so the music choice actually came from like the need and the want for us to create something different. We're definitely probably hypercritical of ourselves, and we would never want to give people an album that they already have.
Right.
So our strive as a band has always been to create something new, create something exciting, and create something different. So the set list choice was mainly made up by that, and then the actual song choice was, again, 4.5 minutes before the show, I tore the side off a cardboard box and I scribbled 14 songs and then put a line in the middle of it, and we went, that's our set.
That's awesome. You know, sometimes just flying off the cuff is the best way to do it.
Yeah.
You mentioned that your audience, you knew that your audience was going to be receptive to this and that they were going to play. You travel all around the world. How do you find the audiences as you travel around? Are they different? Do they react differently?
Yeah. I think the culture is an amazingly easy thing to spot in an audience. And concert going culture is so interesting. Again, our last live album was in Galway, and that was amazing because that's our hometown. It's where we grew up. I mean, one of my high school teachers came to that show, which was ridiculous. And then coming to America, one of the things we've realized is that American audiences are extremely open. And I would say that there's a universal pain in America currently. There's a lot of division. There's a lot of people feeling separated from one another.
Mm-hmm.
And that gives rise to a need for connection. And I think that's what our music, that's what we try and have our music represent is connection. So when we play to an audience in America, we feel many different connections. We feel a connection from them and us as humans. We feel them and us as we're Irish. Some people in the audience have Irish heritage. We also feel a connection that some people have never heard of Ireland before. They literally saw the word banjo on a poster and thought it looked kind of interesting and have now ended up, dancing to a banjo. And there's a connection in that. And I suppose when we stepped on stage in the Ark, we played the Ark a number of times before, and we know that, the audiences that usually come to that venue are really receptive. But yeah, there is a nervousness. You're kind of hoping for the best.
Keeping your fingers crossed, I hear you.
Yeah, you are. But I think the reason that the Ark was so magical is because, again, to be a musician in a time in which music is so important, and just purely keeping us together as humans. So to be able to walk into that room and speak to people on a human level, and again, if you've never been in the Ark, it's about 350, maybe 400 people that kind of sit around in a kind of like almost like in a semicircle around the stage. So there's no backstage. You're like there's no wings. The stage is in the middle of the crowd.
Oh wow, that's really cool.
And that was hugely important for us. Was that wherever we had thought about maybe the Pabst in the Pabst Theater in Milwaukee. We had thought about a couple of different places that we might want to record a live album. And I think what really captured us about the Ark is that you're literally in the middle of the crowd. Mm-hmm. There is a crowd on all sides of you. There's no way to hide anything. Whatever you're like, there's no way you can look on that stage and not be looking at somebody.
Right.
Because again, we stand in the front part of the stage, which means there's actually people behind us. And there's something very, very exhilarating about that level of vulnerability as a musician. There's nothing that can be hidden. And on a live album, you don't want anything hidden. That's the whole point. You want every shout and holler from an audience member. Every mistake makes that album special. And
it succeeded 100%. It was an amazing recording. I was very, very blown away by it. And like I said, all of my favorites on that.
Thank you so much.
You are touring like crazy this summer. You actually have two shows here in New York. You've got one in Buffalo, and then you have the Great American Irish Festival, which we cannot wait to have you back to. And
We're very, very excited.
and you're also going through Canada, and for the readers that aren't familiar with you, you play at a lot of not only Celtic festivals, but you also play at a lot of bluegrass festivals. How do you keep up with this pace and of this touring?
We don't drink a lot of alcohol as a band, but we drink an exceptional amount of coffee.
That's for sure.
We're actually in New York quite a lot, and New York State quite a lot on this summer. We actually start our summer tour in New York.
Okay.
We're doing Grey Fox Bluegrass Festival in Oak Hill.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
On July 19th. So that's actually the day the album comes out.
That is awesome. Yeah, that's a great festival. I believe we cover that sometimes too, if not all the time.
Yeah.
Now, and then once you tour through America and Canada this summer, you're hopping the pond and you're going over to do your fan tour. Tell our readers a little bit about what to expect. I know it's sold out, but I'm sure you'll do it again. And what would they expect this time around?
Well, currently, the tour we're going back in September is just a tour of Ireland that we're doing. The fan tour that we're doing is in April 2020.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the fan tour is currently sold out. And we're thinking something that people learn fairly quickly about our band is that you can't give us opportunities or options because we'll probably take them.
Right.
So there's a thought right now that we might extend the bus tour and add more spots to it, just because it's a lot of fun. And basically, we take our American fans, our friends and American family members and band. We pack them into a bus or two buses, and we're on the bus with you, and we drive around Ireland and show you where we grew up. And show you the pubs that we played music in as kids, and we visit the odd distillery and brewery along the way, and it's a really magical trip. I mean, I grew up in Ireland, spent most of my life in Ireland, and there's parts of Ireland that I completely missed until the first time we did one of those fan tours, because we get to see Ireland through the eyes of people seeing it for the first time, and you really do see how magical the place is.
I have to agree. I love Ireland. I've been on one of those trips with Hammond Tours, and I believe you're going with Hammond Tours as well.
Yeah, Hammond are amazing.
They are amazing.
They make life so easy, and what we like is the fact that people like you have come away feeling like Hammond look after you really well, which is nice.
Oh yeah, it's a wonderful time, and who knows, I may be on your April tour.
We'll squeeze in.
We'll have a blast. Now, this summer when you're out and about, are you getting to do some new venues and try to reach some new audiences while you're out there?
We are actually, and one of the new venues we're doing is in New York, in Buffalo, and 9th Ward at Babeville, which honestly, it's my favorite name of anything ever. 9th Ward at Indescal is going to have a field day.
I'm
when
sure.
he arrives at a place called 9th Ward at Babeville, because he couldn't help himself with that kind of stuff. So that's a new venue for us, and we're very excited because we had a great time in Buffalo last year, and so we're excited to be back. The summer tours are always so interesting and different. So the last time we were in Buffalo, it was during a spring tour. So this will be a little bit different. So we're excited, and of course we're coming back to the Great American Irish Festival, and we had such a good time the first year that we came there.
Oh.
And again, we were only there for a night, but we're excited to be back again.
Oh, we are so excited to have you back as well. And Buffalo is an amazing city for music. They have a lot of great venues, and so I hope you enjoy your time out there as well. And I hope you get to kind of sneak over to Niagara Falls and see Niagara Falls while you're there too.
You know, I saw Niagara Falls when I was a kid. I was young enough that what they did at the time was they just put a stamp on your arm.
No, you got to go back then. It's a lot of fun.
And that was your when you crossed the border into Canada, they just literally stamped your arm, and then that was your ticket to get back into America.
Times have
But
changed.
I know. I think I must have been like 7. So you're talking more than 20 years ago. Yeah, pretty wild. I think things have changed a little bit since then.
A little bit. Now, your music has got an amazing, unique sound, and for again the readers that might not be familiar with you, you're not just Celtic music. You've got an amazing bluegrass sound to you. How did you develop this sound, or was it just something that is more evolved because of your Celtic background? Because I know bluegrass is kind of an outskirt of the Celtic sound when they immigrated over to our area over here. So
there is a huge connection between Irish music and bluegrass, and so the deeper connection for me and Martin anyway. We're brothers, so we grew up, sharing a room. And our dad is this huge music fan, and particularly American folk music and American country music. So we kind of grew up with these mixtapes outside of our bedroom door with kind of a mixture of Paul Brady and Gareth Brooks.
Awesome.
Yeah, and like we, Paul Brady, Gareth Brooks, Glenn Campbell, the Chieftains, Planxty. So we grew up with this myriad of almost like schizophrenic music in front of us and often what would happen is that he would have recorded over a tape, and so there might be half a song and then it might shift to the second half of a different song, and I think that meant that me and Martin grew up in kind of a world of music in which there were no boundaries or barriers. Our first band was a rock band called Hoplite, in which Martin was the drummer. He's a terrible drummer, like awful. And I was an awful singer back then. And our musical journey has never stopped shifting and changing. And I think that's the influence on the band. I know Enda and Fergal have played in countless bands over their lifetime, and I think that's been so important for our music as a band, is that we don't really put any firm chains on anything.
Right.
And if you listen to our music from the very first song that we ever recorded to the latest song, you can feel an ebb and flow in all of our albums. That even on the same album, there's some songs that are highly traditional Irish music, and then others that if you put them on the radio alongside an Ed Sheeran song, they would fit in somewhere in that pop bracket.
Right.
And we've tried to maintain that, because that's, for us, is how we maintain that there's something for everybody in every show. And it's awesome for us to see, these grannies we've watched these, 70, 80-year-old women standing beside a 12-year-old in the audience, and they're both enjoying the same music, both from, worlds, growing up in totally different worlds, but that the music itself is accessible enough, and that's accessibility has been a huge thing for us. If you listen to bluegrass music, and if you listen to Irish music and American folk music, accessibility is one of the highly important parts of those music, particularly Irish music. You literally don't need to know any Irish music before you go to see a gig, because a lot of it's fairly explanatory,
right,
or self-explanatory. So, like, what we've noticed is, we play to a brand new audience, so not a single person has ever heard of us. The songs are, they need to grow on people, because some people are, particularly when you have an accent, sometimes people miss a word here or there, and they might not get the song, and they might not get the words or whatever. But the tunes, everybody gets. Everybody gets the melodies. Right. It's crazy, and particularly the bodhrán. We found the bodhrán is the bodhrán is the common denominator amongst everybody. The bodhrán is the drum that Fergal plays on stage, which hilariously the bodhrán translates to deaf man's drum.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's a goat skin on a wooden rim, and you play it with one hand. People love the bodhrán.
Oh yeah.
I could be up there being Steve Vai on, or doing banjo pyrotechnics. The mandolin could be on fire, and when Fergal plays the bodhrán, everybody can't take their eyes off it.
I know.
Which is which shows that is it's accessible. It's highly accessible for people. And I think that if you look at the type of music that we play as a band, the overarching word that we try and maintain in all the music we play is this accessible for people? Like, is this music that people, like normal people, can listen to and really enjoy? And that's kind of what we go for.
Well, I think again you succeed in that. I think it's an amazing. It transcends all generations and all cultures, and everybody enjoys it. And I've never seen a still person at one of your shows. Everybody's dancing, even those that don't dance, and that's okay. No,
including myself.
You guys do awesome. You kidding me?
Well, that's why I became a musician, because you can be a really bad dancer,
well,
and as long as you're playing something.
Well, let me tell you, for anybody that's not seen your live show, you have a high energy show, and it builds and it just explodes at the end, and it's one of those live performances that leaves the audience can't wait for the next one, you know. So
well, thank you so much.
You have amazing live show. Now, do you find now that you're living in America that you have some influences from the areas that you're traveling around in? And if so, who's like on your playlist today, or that might be influencing what you're doing?
Yeah. Well, I live in Nashville, Tennessee currently, and I found that it's really interesting to see the broad spectrum of music here. I mean, Nashville is Music City.
Right.
But once you get outside of the Music City, honky-tonk, downtown, Broadway scene, there's this world of music that is really, really authentic and individual. And so, yeah, we would go to this place, the American Legion in East Nashville, where on a Wednesday there's the most authentic bluegrass that you've ever heard. It's around one mic, and there's a lot of influence that I found in the last couple of years through listening to music that really, the song hangs on every word. There's no extra fancy production or guitar pedal sounds, or there's no synth, or there's nothing to hide the song. The song's on the front end. And I found that really, really inspiring over the last couple of years of writing songs, is trying to figure out how to write a song that really like if you just sang the song with no melody, no guitar, nothing, you just sang the words, that the song would still have a reason to exist. And that has, it's kind of both, living in Nashville is both inspiring and terrifying.
Oh yeah.
And so I find myself sitting down and listening to those songs. I also try and learn songs. We try to put new covers together for the summer, because it's so fun. We do a version of the Jackson 5's "I Want You Back."
Oh wow.
And we've done, we do "Superstition" by Stevie Wonder.
Yeah.
But so we always try and keep new songs in the mix, and currently I'm learning "September" by Earth, Wind and Fire.
Oh, good choice. Good choice.
And again, as a musician, that song is really, really hard. Much harder than I thought it was going to be. And so I find that that's the main influence I get from music is it's slightly outside of what you see on your usual tour scene, and particularly when we go to the bluegrass and the Irish festivals, we're seeing a lot of friends of ours and musicians that we've known for years. So it's when you pull out a song from like an older generation, or a completely different genre of music, that's when you really start to learn.
And I see that in your writing on Haven. Tell our readers a little bit about "Hold On to Your Soul." I know that one is a song that has inspired a lot of community and a lot of support for mental health awareness. And
yeah.
And tell my readers a little bit about how that came to be, and what you've done to date, and how they can help.
Yeah. Basically, uh, where do I start with this?
So hold on to your soul. Tell the readers about the song itself. What is,
Yeah.
that mental health awareness is, the song itself is extremely supportive, and it reaches people to say, hey, there's a tomorrow, there's a day, there's help, there's people that care.
Yeah. We basically sat. We did a show a couple of years ago at this stage, and at the time we were singing a new song called "Don't Let Me Down,"
Mhm.
which is a song that is about mental health struggle. And after the show, a woman came up and explained that it was the first time that she had been to a show in months, and that her husband had committed suicide not too long before that. And it was something that really impacted us as a band, because I don't think we'd ever put it two and two together that our music could actually be helpful to anybody, or that it could help in any way. And Hold On to Your Soul was kind of written from that stark realization.
Mhm.
And I remember me and Enda sitting in a hotel room in Tokyo, Japan, playing around with writing the bridge. And what we really wanted from the song is just to be very, very honest about what it's like. And I think that living in today's world is really, really difficult. And it can be really lonely and scary. And I think, could I go back to, my 16 and 17-year-old self and say one thing, it would probably be the words of just hang on, just like hang on for dear life, because everything changes, and it changes so quickly that you won't recognize the person you're going to be in 10 years.
Right.
In a good way.
Right.
And I think that it's really interesting because our music is highly positive and happy and jovial, and then the juxtaposition to that is that life can be really hard, and what we wanted from our concert was to give people a break, so that people come and listen to our music and can step away from whatever they're struggling with that day, and then when they come back to it, maybe have a little bit more energy and life for it. I mean, that's where the partnership with Mental Health America came, was that, a lot of our music has kind of a mental health theme or edge to it, and we wanted to, I suppose we're not therapists either, and we wanted to partner with people who were professionally equipped to deal with things like this and understand mental health on a deeper level. And so we created this idea that if we could have a donation from every one of our shirts, it would give a way for us to donate and give a way for people to donate and create awareness. And that's where the Light in the Western Sky idea came from for our summer tour last year, which is that idea that, the light never really goes down, and that if you can just kind of hang on, that things will change. And this summer's tour is called Roots to Rise,
Mm-hmm.
which root to rise is actually a yoga term. And we just thought it was such a beautiful thing that there's so much life in the roots of a tree, and as that grows up, and you kind of, all those connections and all those branches, that's what stabilizes you and keeps you upright in life. And yeah, we're really excited for this summer. We have a lot of new music. We have a lot of, it's a really powerful thing to be able to stand up on stage and talk about mental health.
And I have to say that of all of the musicians, and I cover a lot of musicians, of all the musicians, not very many address this situation. And I think it's just extremely powerful and positive, and a way for everyone to, again, like you say, join each other and through differences to help each other and be a community. So I think it's amazing, and my hat's off to you guys for doing that, and for, because it's kind of a scary thing to put out there. So, you guys have been very vulnerable, and I think it's Well, you should be commended for everything that you've done for the mental health awareness, and
Thank you so much.
And I can't wait for the summer tours, and we can't wait to have you back here at Great American Irish Festival, and in New York State, and I can't wait for everybody to hear the interview, and also to get out there and get your new album too, so that they can see what it's really like, and then that way they know to go to one of your shows.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for taking the time out. We're so thankful for people like you, because that's how we get people to shows.
Right.
They hear about it through people like you.
Well, it's wonderful. It's wonderful to talk to you again, and I can't wait to see you in a couple of weeks. Until then, you guys have a great tour, and I will see you on the road.
Great, thank you so much. Have a good summer. We'll see you soon.
And say hi to the lads for me.
I will indeed.
Thanks, dear. Bye-bye.
All right, see ya. From